Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and I'm always delighted and honored, quite frankly, when we have time to sit down with one of my favorite frontline warriors, Troy Miller. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Religious Broadcasters, and you can go to nrb.org and check out a lot what's going on there, and in particular, their world-famous convention coming up in February in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm telling you, no matter where you are with media or Christian communication, this is the event to attend. And you go to nrb.org and do it quickly and get registered, because it fills up pretty fast. Brother Troy, good to see you, friend. How are you, buddy?
Good to see you, Perry. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, you're the man. Are you in New York?
I am. I'm in New York City.
Whoa. What's that all about?
Well, I'm up here to do 3 days of media interviews to talk about some new initiatives that NRB has launched, as well as my recent trip to Israel and all the other issues we have going on.
All right. So much to go on. Now, this is kind of an annual thing for you. What's your goal there, Troy?
Yeah, look, we have to use the media to build awareness of, things that are going on in the culture. And as Christians, we still face a lot of obstacles. Wow, got that word out.
That's right.
The travel got to me.
Yeah.
But, we're happy. This administration has been great to work with, but we still have a lot of roadblocks in corporate America. We have a lot of cancel culture that's going on, a lot of censorship. We're still fighting the AM radio battle, and hopefully with the government maybe coming out of shutdown, we can get back to some of these issues that really are important to our country.
Yeah, good stuff. Have you been there long enough to get a feel post-election?
Well, not yet. I'm going to have some meetings today in that, but I have been talking to people post-election, and look, there's a lot of concern up here. That one of the largest cities in the world has elected a socialist who's also an Islamist and an anti-Semite, and with that, he's also pretty much anti-Christian. So I think all eyes are going to be on New York over the next 12 months and see what happens to the city.
I've had several people on post-election, and even a rabbi, and I guess there is obvious concern about what the future may or may not be. But the point being is that they're rising to the challenge and saying that all people of faith need to come together and stand up. Now, I would say of all faith, maybe excluding Islam, because that's the one that he represents that would be counter to all the other. So it looks like they're going to try to stake out some ground here. But this is serious stuff as it relates to Jews and Christians within the city. And I know you're concerned about it. Other than prayer, can we get involved in any way?
Well, it is, Perry. It's a two-edged sword here, because on one edge of that sword, you have socialism. And everywhere socialism has been tried around the world, and just look at some of the cities that have tried it around the U.S. Look at San Francisco, look at L.A., look at Minneapolis, look at some of these cities. They're falling apart. They're falling into chaos and disarray, Portland, Oregon. So that's one side of the sword that the city's going to be dealing with. And the other side of the sword is the Islamists, this rise of Islam. Look, I'm going to be meeting with some rabbis here. I would hope that the city's communities, faith communities, would come together. But even some of the more moderate imams need to stand up to the radicals here and say it is not okay to persecute anybody of another faith. So again, Perry, there's going to be a lot of eyes on New York to see how this city turns out. And, there's been a lot of talk about, well, people are going to exit. There are millions of people here, Perry, that can't just pack up everything and leave. Right. And what kind of city, what kind of environment are we going to leave them to fend for themselves? And as Christians, we need to be prepared because I think it's going to take not only a lot of prayer, but it's going to take a lot of action on the ground. People to come in here and provide services and to do things and not be afraid of the consequences.
Good. I want to talk about, I know you were in Israel firsthand, but the rise of anti-Semitism across the country, Troy, is alarming. It's staggering, and I don't know what your take is on it, but even abroad, the rise of anti-Semitism, one of the questions that this produces, why is Judaism the exception to CRT?
Yeah, boy, that's a good question, right? The one of the smallest minorities in the world. I think that I read recently an estimated only about 15 million Jews around the world, with half of those being in Israel. And so here you have one of the smallest minorities who have been persecuted, in almost every country that they've ever lived in. But look, we follow a Savior who was Jewish. And Jesus told us to remember, when the world hates you, don't forget it hated me first. And I think he was talking twofold. In one, he's the savior of the world, but two, he's also was a Jew. And people, and this spiritual battle has always been against God's people, God's elect people, the people that we are grafted into. This is the olive tree that Paul tells us we're grafted into. And so I think it's at the end of the day, Perry, it's a spiritual battle of Satan, who hates God's people, the Jews first, as Paul said, and then the Christians.
As Christian broadcasters in the United States and around the world, if we don't address anti-Semitism, is our silence a condonement?
Absolutely, 100%. It is a condonement, and it's cowardice as well. But look at around the world. The Jewish hate. And back to New York, two things in Europe and around the world. So the rise of socialism and communism has always led to Jewish Christian persecution, and anywhere the rise of Islam has always led to Jewish and Christian persecution. We have been fighting hard. We thank the president for his declaration on Nigeria as a country of particular concern, but that needs to happen in the Congo. It needs to happen in Sudan. It needs to happen in South Africa. Right now, there's persecution going everywhere. When I was in Israel at a conference we're at, the deputy foreign minister spoke, and I thank her for this. She brought up the issue of Christian persecution and said, Israel experienced October 7th. That was a horrible day of persecution for Israel. But Christians are experiencing that at the hands of Islamists every day around the world.
As Christian broadcasters continue to do what God called us to do, and in particular fight anti-Semitism wherever we can, it has created a whole new level of security. Are you hearing that from fellow broadcasters around the world?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's this kind of unholy alignment, but it has created a whole new issue of security concerns, because we've seen Islam on the rise here in our own country, in Dearborn, in Texas, in Minneapolis, and other cities around. We've seen the rise, and we know when you protect the Jewish people, when you fight anti-Semitism, you're basically putting a target on yourself. And again, this alliance with this progressive left. Charlie Kirk's assassin was an anti-Semite and a transgender champion, and that has also been the last, I think, 6, Perry, major attacks that's happened in the U.S. around schools and other facilities have come out of that ideology.
I struggle to ask you this question, but I'm going to do it anyway. So hang in there, buddy. Have you followed this whole controversy with the Heritage Foundation and Tucker Carlson? What's your take?
Yeah, look, let me take the Tucker Carlson thing first. Tucker Carlson has been on this anti-Semitic, anti-Zionism, anti-Jewish, rant for several months now, and he has, and it really was to give Nick Fuentes a stage, to give him a platform to communicate and not be the pushback journalist that he was with, Senator Cruz. He was really approving of what Nick was saying about the people, and neither of them They both claim to be Christians, but I see no fruit there, and I see no depth of understanding that they really understand what it means to be a Christian. For I think Tucker for recently said that it's New Testament Christianity that makes all the difference. Well, when Peter told and Paul told, excuse me, Barry, told their followers to read the scriptures, remember they only had the Old Testament.
Yeah, that is a great response. I think what makes this so difficult for so many of us, that he gave a clear description of redemption and salvation during the Charlie Kirk Memorial. And it kind of set us back. We thought, really, that came from him. And then 2 weeks later, he's doing this kind of stuff. I don't know, it's kind of left us with our brain on tilt.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's been with us on other issues. He's one of the great apologists for the pro-life movement and for the weaponization of government and some of those others. I just don't understand where he's at with this, but I really think it really the root of it is a shallow biblical understanding.
All right. Let me take a break here, because when I come back, I want to talk to you about a new NRB's new Veterans Ministry Initiative. This is terrific. So let me take a break here. Let me share to our viewers and listeners, go to the nrb.org website. There's a picture of the landing page. And certainly do everything you can to attend the NRB annual convention. This year will be there in Nashville, Tennessee. And thousands of Christian media people, broadcasters, publishers, all kinds, get there, get together. You can mingle, fellowship, learn a lot, and get a lot of exposure. So check it out. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, and such an honor to have with us Troy Miller. He's the CEO of the National Religious Broadcasters, and we caught him in New York today. He's in New York City. Troy, thank you. I mean, here you are getting up. You've got a busy day ahead of us, and you give us a few moments, so we value that greatly. Thank you. Thank you. So what's happening with the NRB's new Veterans Ministry Initiative? What's going on there?
So, Perry, I'm a Navy veteran. I served in the 1980, 6 years in the Navy. And, if you look at around the country today, Perry, the veterans that have some of the highest suicide rates, the highest addiction rates, highest divorce rates, highest rates of depression, and of course are dealing with a lot of mental issues, PTSD and others coming out of that. And as a military, as a veteran, when you come out of that kind of environment, when you've spent 6 years or 8 years or even 4 years in that environment or more, you develop a real sense of purpose, of meaning, of mission. You have a family, you have folks around you. But you also have this kind of DNA, I think, that God gave us, those of us who served in the military, this DNA to serve and to be a part of this. So what we have launched is an initiative to look at churches across this country. We're asking pastors across this country to reach out and develop a veterans outreaches, just as you have outreaches for other parts of the community, but particularly for veterans. We know a lot of churches probably already have veterans that are attending, and those are the best people to kind of read this outreach. What we want to do is equip these churches with the resources that they need to connect them with the thousands of or hundreds of veterans ministries that are across this country, some national, some very small and local. And then ultimately, through this collaboration, we expect to not only to impact the veterans' lives, but their families' lives, the people around them and communities. So this initiative is a real outreach to the people who have fought and served to protect the freedoms that we enjoy. And what a better place for them to be, Perry, than in a church and to hear the gospel, what gives them that purpose, that mission, and that meaning again, and to have a family environment that loves them. And as I said, they're some of the best people to serve in your church as well.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Troy, I want to swing our attention back to Christian persecution. And it's not that I want to dwell on a negative, but it's an obvious thing that's on the rise. But there may be another purpose in this for ourselves, and that is Christian persecution produces clarity. What is it do you believe, and why do you believe it, and can you gracefully defend it? It seems to me that we're hearing fluffy gospel go away and clarity of the true gospel come into focus. Are you sensing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sensing that. And again, if you look at the history of the Old Testament and God's relationship with the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, every time they kind of moved into this fluffy, comfortable environment, they also started to shift to be, pagan and more accommodating to the culture instead of leading the culture around them. And God's ultimate way to get them back was through oftentimes persecution, sometimes through conquest that came in, and through bad leaders that came into the country to get them to refocus to God and to understand the purpose and to understand there really is a battle out there between good and evil, a spiritual battle. And so why we wouldn't want to see anybody having to live through this, and we pray for it, we fight for our brothers and sisters around the world and ourselves here. It does give a clarity and a waking up to the church and to the purpose and the meaning of the gospel.
I've had a lot of people on lately, Troy, and I know you know this, but there seems to be a growing, genuine, authentic hunger among young men. And they seem to be flocking towards church, religious institutions, and primarily because they're waking up the fact that the culture has lied to them. Now, the world is spinning this as that they're just seeking other means of truth, when actually this is a spiritual calling, don't you sense?
I think they're seeking the real truth. I'd love it when the other guys say, well, they're speaking in other means of truth. No, if they got the truth, they wouldn't be looking for anything else. They're seeking the truth. I'll go back to our study that we did back in January and then expound upon it a little bit. The number one thing that people were looking for was encouragement and hope. We asked them, why are you reaching out to Christian media? What's the purpose that you're tuning in? And they said, I'm looking for encouragement and hope. And that tells you that they're not getting it in secular society. They're not getting that. And that was like in the high 80s. I mean, that was the top reason that they were looking in. I also think, Perry, post Charlie Kirk's assassination, I think Charlie's murder was a real wake-up call for young people who thought they were part of a tolerant movement, and to find out that it was their movement that murdered this man who was just caring for, loving, and trying to help people. Charlie didn't hurt anybody. Charlie tried to have a conversation on ideas. He never ran anybody down. He didn't talk about them personally. He said, let me debate your choices and my choices. I think that was a real wake-up call for people, especially young people, is why we're seeing more Bible sales, more people go back to church, and more young men looking for the kind of leadership that Charlie provided.
That's great. So, Troy, you've led this organization through a very difficult time, and it's now blossomed into a powerhouse. And I want to say thank you for your leadership. But what's ahead with the shifting trends of media consumption? You know the drill, and here we are going into 2026. What's your take, Coach?
Well, first of all, I hope that with the government now coming out of its shutdown, we can get back to the work that you talked about. We have the AM radio bill that we want to get in and protect that. I don't know if you've seen some of the recent news, but Tesla announced we said all along this wasn't about antique AM radio. This wasn't about that. This was about who controls the dash. And now Tesla says we're going to take FM radio out too. And then Chevy comes out and says, hey, we're going to take CarPlay and Android Auto out. So hopefully we get back to that. But we do have a shifting landscape to help people navigate, to help Christian communicators navigate through. We still are working with and fighting at the FCC for public interest programming for those of us that are not in the commercial for-profit world out there. We're in the educational world. We're in the arts and entertainment world. Those provisions still exist in the original Cable Act. And so we're reminding of that. So as we move to this digital world, we don't get left behind. And so that's a big battle for us. That's what the future holds.
With the squeeze of public radio and television defundment, that is producing some concerns. But at the same time, what we're saying about this, why don't you go ahead and compete like everybody else? But as I watch those arguments, Troy, what's alarming to me is some of their pushback on their argument is, well, take a look at Christian radio and TV and see how they're doing it. Why don't you tax them and how they get their income? And I'm looking at that argument, I'm going, oh, my stars, here we go.
Yeah, it's a pretty straw man argument because I don't know any Christian, but any of our members, Perry, that have gotten hundreds of millions of dollars from the government over years. When you're taking government money and you're supposed to be representing all of the people of the country, and you only produce programming that represents a small group of the country, then you should lose that funding. That was my argument. That's been my argument up in Congress for several years now, and I'm happy to see them do it. But I will say, again, back to the argument with PBS, I think we do have an ally there in the fact that non-commercial programming is important to this country. Congress said it was important when they enacted the first Television Act and then the Cable Act, that kind of educational programming that's never going to get the dollars and the funds that the big commercial guys get. That's important, and it's important to be protected. So on that, I think we both agree. But this idea that Christians have always fended for themselves and worked hard to raise funds from their audiences and to provide the quality of programming that audiences want to support. I'm just happy to see that PBS is actually on that same foot. And one last thing quickly, that they still enjoy a number of privileges in the laws that our members don't.
Well, they get these grants to build things. I mean, that's how the government gets money to them,
Well, not only that, Perry, but they get special legislation that gets them on all the cable systems across the country. They don't have to do like we do, roll up our sleeves and work to get on the different distribution platforms out there. They get, special privileges there. And so that's the next battle that we're fighting. If they get it, we should get it. And it should be a level playing field for all non-commercial educational kind of television.
God bless you, pal. Thank you for being there. All right, give us a plug. Why should we come to Nashville, buddy?
Hey, look, we live in the information age. We live in the age of media and the age of communications, and everybody is in media today. If you have a Facebook account, an Instagram, you're on X, you're on Twitter, you're on TikTok, then you're a communicator. And if you want to know what's going on in our industry and how to do that better, then you should be at the NRB convention, because we're going to help you and educate you in all of those things. Plus, we're going to bring the experts in to talk about all the issues we've just talked about. Where are we going with artificial intelligence? Where's the industry trending? And all of these issues that will be out there. Or if you're just a listener of Dove TV, then you're going to see Perry walking around the halls, and you go up and shake his hand. So you'll have your favorite pastor, your favorite person. I'm sure they're all going to be there with 5,000, 6,000 of the other friends. So it is the place to be. November 17th through the 20th, Nashville, Tennessee. Great time of year to be there. The Gaylord Opryland's beautiful. And do it quickly, because in about 2 weeks, early bird rates will go up.
Yep. So go to the nrb.org. You can register there. Troy, thank you. Thanks for your time, buddy. God bless you while you're there in the city, and thank you for you and your team being our front and center frontline warriors out there on the big scene.
It's always a pleasure, Perry, and an honor to serve you.
All right. God bless you, pal. See you soon.